what philosophy deals with are the assumptions on which a great many normal beliefs rest. Not the sort of things which people like to dig up, because people sometimes don't really want their assumptions examined overmuch, because people are rather uncomfortable when they're made to look into what really their beliefs rest on. But in fact, the sort of assumptions which a great many ordinary common sense beliefs rest are matters for philosophical analysis. When looked at, they turn out to be a great deal less secure and a great deal more complicated than they seem at first. And philosophers, by examining these, teach people self-knowledge. They explain to them, sometimes in a very illuminating way, what they believe and why they believe it. And this is a very central task.
We're all of us made very uncomfortable by having our assumptions examined, as you just say, by digging into the presuppositions of our own thought. And I think we all, beyond a certain point, resisted. Why do you think we resisted?
Well, of course, because people don't like being overanalyzed, I suppose, and partly because action itself, perhaps, precludes this kind of thing. Quite obviously, if you're simply actively engaged in some kind of life, constantly to be asked, why do you do this? Are you sure that what the goals which you're pursuing are true goals? Are you certain that what you're doing is not, in some way, it doesn't contravene some kind of moral beliefs which perhaps you ought to hold? Or are you sure that some of your values don't conflict with certain other values and you're simply not facing that? That sometimes when you're plunged into some kind of dilemma, you are so frightened of looking it in the face that you avert your gaze and try and get the responsibility upon some other back, on the back of the state, for example, on the back of your teachers, on the back of your class, on the back of some other association to which you belong. Shouldn't you perhaps face this responsibility? This, I think, daunts people, naturally creates resistance. I will say this, that if everybody in a society were skeptical intellectuals constantly examining their own roots, nobody would be able to live at all. And therefore, men of action cannot be called upon, all of them, constantly to be examining themselves. And it's therefore the task of philosophers, who are, I suppose, people particularly curious about these things, to be doing this particular thing. But on the other side, it must be said that if these things are not examined and left fallow, then societies become ossified. Beliefs turn into dogma, imagination is warped, the intellect becomes sterile, societies decay as a result of simply lying on some comfortable bed of unexamined dogma. If the imagination is to be stirred, if the intellect is to work, assumptions must be questioned. Presuppositions must be challenged. The whole thing has to be constantly looked at, and not by too many, and not too much perhaps, but nevertheless sufficiently to keep the society moving. Society moves by some degree of parricide, by which the children, on the whole, kill, if not their fathers, at least the beliefs of their fathers, and arrive at new beliefs. And this is how development occurs. This is what progress is.
I think a lot of people come to philosophy wanting to be told how to live, or wanting to be given an explanation of the world, or an explanation of life, or something. And it seems to me that to have that desire is an abnegation of personal responsibility. One shouldn't want to be told how to live. One shouldn't want definitive answers. But it's an entirely different thing to want clarification of one's life, clarification of issues, and so on, so that one personally can take decisions and take responsibility for oneself.
It's a painful thing you are saying, but of course I agree with it. Most people want to be given answers. One of the things I remember very well, Turgenev, when he's writing about his own writing, says one of the troubles about his novels, why they're not more admired than they should be, is the Russian reader in the 19th century wants to be told how to live. And he wants to be quite clear about who are the heroes and who are the villains. And he, Turgenev, doesn't do this. Tolstoy did it, Dostoevsky did it, a lot of other writers do it. In Dickens, there's no doubt who is good and who is not. But Turgenev says, all I do is paint human beings as they are. I don't guide the reader. I don't tell him on which side, so to speak, I myself stand. And this irritates them, annoys them, leaves them hanging in some sort of way, and people hate that. It's not the business of the moral philosopher any more than it's the business of the novelist to guide people in their lives. What his business is to face them with the alternatives, with the issues, explain to them what they're choosing among, and then in the light of whatever it is they believe, they must plump.
It seems to me extraordinary that so many so-called plain men should assert that the critical examination of these models is really an abstract and unrealistic activity, because if you don't drag out into the light the presuppositions of your thinking, especially in moral and political and social spheres, then that makes you simply the the prisoner of whatever the reigning orthodoxy is. It makes you the prisoner of the existing model, of the model of your age or the model of your day. And of course, these philosophical ideas that we're discussing have had such immense practical influence. I mean, on the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, on the religions of the world, on the Marxist governments of the world. I mean, these are all examples of how philosophical ideas, in the most direct and obvious way, have practically influenced human beings. So the view that this is sort of unconnected with real life seems to me to be itself unconnected with real life, profoundly unrealistic.
It was the German poet Heine who said, do not mistake the quiet philosopher in his study. He's a very powerful and formidable figure. Do not think him a mere harmless pedant engaged upon a lot of trivial tasks. If Kant had not beheaded the god of the theologians, Robespierre might not have beheaded the king. The great German metaphysicians, Fichtians, Schedlingians, and the like, are people who will one day not be deterred either by fear or by pursuit of pleasure, and will destroy a great many monuments of our civilization. When this great metaphysical rage explodes over the world, the French Revolution will seem to be a mere child's play, and so on and so on. The power of philosophical or metaphysical ideas is very great.